said, we accomplish that by the way we set the sheep up and then hold them in that position with the feet and the legs. Also, as I'm shearing, you might want to kind of watch my left hand. You'll see the way it'll just be moving around all the time. I'm sure you would think that my right hand is doing all the work, means I'm holding a handpiece with it and cutting the wool off with it. But actually, the left hand is doing just as much work, because what the left hand does is always having that sheep set up in the right position for the next stroke that I'll be taking. As I'm shearing, you'll see the way that I'll be just moving that hand around all the time. I use it for pressure points on the sheep, to make them stretch a leg out or doing particular things like that. I'll point out some of those things as I'm shearing. I'll be shearing using what is called the Australian method of shearing. Worldwide, this Australian method is considered to be the acceptable way. Every sheep we shear exactly the same. We start out shearing, sheep is set up on its rump, right like this. All 4 feet are extended out in front of it, and then as we continue with the shearing, we move the sheep around. One last point I'd like to make, and then I'll bring a sheep out and do the shearing. I want to stress that it definitely does not hurt a sheep to be sheared. It's not a lot different shearing a sheep than it is for us when we get something done to our own hair, except there is one major difference. You know, when we go to a barber or beautician shop, we know what's going to happen. We go because we want to have something done. That's not the case with the sheep. They're not caring about what they look like, and they're not going to trot right up here and sit down and give me a little shave, so on and so forth. And you know, it's putting them in strange conditions. They don't realize what's happening to them. So if they do try to fight and resist the shearing a little bit, it definitely does not mean that it's hurting them. It just means that at the moment they'd a little bit sooner be someplace else. So I'll bring a sheep out now, and I'll do the shearing. Following the shearing, I'll talk about wool, and then I'll open it up for any questions that you might have. Haircut.
They have been killed along this time of the year. You guys familiar with the hair pictures. They look like they've been butchered when they get done with.
Remember that I said that left hand is always going to be moving around, having it keep in the right position for the next stroke that I take. What I'm doing right now with my left hand, I'm putting a little pressure on his leg to make it straighten it out. Because ordinarily, they're going to bring their leg up like that, and create wrinkles. They get cut just like that. So what we do is put some pressure there, pop that leg out, straighten the skin out, keeps it from getting cut. This is a lamb that I'm shearing that's just probably about 4 months old. So it doesn't have near its full growth, nor does it have its full growth of wool. We'll talk about wool growth here a little bit later on.
Flip somebody all the time.
Okay, give me a second. I'll put the lamb back, and then we'll talk a little bit about wool.
You done already?
Yep.
Nothing to it. Dog's nice.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. She gives Sophie a haircut. Except it only takes me an hour.
Well done. Nice job.
When we handle this wool, very oily and greasy. See how oily my hands are for handling that wool? Anyone know what that oil is called?
Lanolin?
Anybody else? Here's a man that knows. He's no cheat man. Beth, you know what that oil is called? Very good. Lanolin. Lanolin is something that probably all of you don't use it every day, you use it very often. Lanolin is one of the ingredients that goes into practically all cosmetics, hand lotions, all these things like that you use on your skin. The reason for that is because this wool, or this lanolin, is very, very healing. Just in general, is a good skin conditioner. So next time you're using any of these skincare products, remember, right here from this wool, that's where that lanolin comes from. As you look at it, you kind of see a little bit of a yellowish cast. That's the lanolin that is in there. The way they get that lanolin out, when this wool goes to the mill and processed, the first thing they do is wash the wool. Then they take the water that they've washed it in, it's ran through another machine, and that extracts the lanolin out from the wash water. Most sheep are sheared once a year. Here in the Midwest, where we have adequate housing to keep the sheep in, actually we shear all times of year. But you take sheep out on range conditions where they have no protection from the elements, sheared once a year during the spring when the weather starts warming up. One thing to remember about sheep and the wool is a continuous growth. Sheep do not shed like a lot of other animals do. The wool is just like our hair. It just keeps growing. If we cut it off, it grows back. If we don't cut it, it just keeps getting longer. I got some wool here that was sheared off of a sheep that had not been shorn for a couple of years. That gives you an idea how long it can get. I don't think any of us, a day like today, would appreciate a wool coat like this. So you see, we shear the sheep not only to get the wool, but also for the general health and the comfort of the animal.